Aviation can look routine from the outside. A normal takeoff, a normal landing, a flight that seems completely under control. But sometimes, one morning, one failure, or one wrong moment changes everything. In this video, we look at real plane crash moments caught on camera, not for shock, but to understand what happened, why it happened, and what these accidents can teach us. Watch closely, because behind every crash, there is more than just the footage. There is a decision, a mistake, a failure, or a lesson that still matters. On December 8th, 2023, a Piper Super Cub crashed near Anchor Point, Alaska. A dash camera captured the airplane falling almost straight down, upside down, in a flat spin. By that point, the left wing was already badly damaged. Investigators found no evidence of engine failure and no confirmed problem with the flight controls. The main clue was damage on the front edge of the left wing, possibly from a glancing impact. But the exact event that started the accident could not be determined. Both people on board were killed. This crash shows one of aviation's hardest truths. When a wing loses its strength in flight, there may be no time left to recover. On April 28, 2017, a Westwind business jet made an emergency landing at Sarasota Bradenton International Airport in Florida. The problem had started earlier, after the aircraft lost its left main wheel during departure from Belize. On landing, the pilots tried to keep the damaged side off the runway for as long as they could, but eventually, the bare wheel hub touched the surface and began scraping along the pavement. The jet stayed under control, slowed down, and came to a stop. No one was killed. This landing shows that the danger is not over at touchdown. Even after the wheels touch, calm control can decide how the emergency ends. On April 21st, 2026, a Beechcraft Baron was flying over southern Mexico with 6 people on board. At some point during the flight, the emergency became very serious. Both engines lost power. The pilot turned toward Oaxaca and prepared to get the aircraft on the ground. But even on final approach, the problems were not over. There were also reports of trouble with the landing gear. The Baron touched down hard, then veered off the runway. For a moment, this could have ended much worse. But the aircraft came to a stop, and everyone on board survived. One person was injured. The exact cause is still under investigation, but this incident shows how quickly a flight can turn into a chain of emergencies. First the engines, then the landing gear, then the runway. At that point, survival depends on keeping control all the way until the aircraft finally stops. On August 19, 1977, a Cessna Super Skymaster made an emergency landing at Geneva Airport in Switzerland. The aircraft had damage to its nose landing gear, which meant the front of the airplane might not stay supported after touchdown. Before the landing, emergency crews prepared the runway with firefighting foam. That gave the pilot the best possible surface to work with. The airplane touched down, and as it slowed, the nose settled onto the runway, but the pilot kept it under control. The aircraft stayed straight and came to a stop. This was the kind of emergency where preparation mattered. A damaged landing gear did not become a disaster because the pilot managed the speed carefully and the crews on the ground were ready before the airplane touched down. On October 19, 2016, a Beechcraft B-200 Super King Air made an emergency landing at Will Rogers World Airport in Oklahoma City. Its nose gear had failed to come down, so the pilot knew the front of the aircraft would eventually settle onto the runway. Touchdown was controlled. He kept the aircraft stable, held the nose up as long as possible, and waited for speed to bleed off. Only then did the nose settle onto the pavement. The aircraft slid forward and came to a stop. The pilot walked away without injury. This landing shows why patience matters in a gear emergency. Touchdown is only one part of it. The real challenge is keeping the aircraft straight, managing speed, and staying calm until everything finally stops. On May 26, 2014, a light aircraft made a gear-up landing at Cizzago, Italy. The video shows the aircraft making a low pass over the grass airfield. Only the right main landing gear appeared to be down. The rest of the gear was still up. The pilot came around for another approach. At that point, landing with only one gear leg down could have made the aircraft tip, turn, or dig into the ground. So the pilot chose a safer option. He landed with the gear up. Just before touchdown, power appears to be reduced. Then the aircraft settles onto its belly and slides along the grass runway. The landing stays controlled and the airplane comes to a stop. The pilot was not injured. No one on the ground was hurt. No detailed official report could be found for this incident, so the description is based mainly on the video itself and the upload information. But the lesson is still clear. When landing gear is only partly down, forcing the landing can make things worse. Sometimes the safer choice is to keep the aircraft level, land gently, and let the grass help slow the slide.
È come cadere con la bicicletta, fai quelle sbucciate con tutti dentro. Ti ricordi con la cappa? Ce n'era uno a Carpi, c'era un vento tale che era talmente agitato nell'atterrare che non ha tirato fuori il carrello.
E quello con l'F30 2 settimane fa. Sì, che 2 volte, 3 settimane, 2 volte sei andato ad atterrare che mi ha proprio salutato.
In a video uploaded on April 25, 2014, a single-engine aircraft makes an emergency landing at Belluno Airport in Italy. The reported problem was engine failure. The pilot was still close to the airfield. That gave him one important chance. He had enough height to glide back toward the runway. The aircraft came in without engine power and lined up for landing. There was no hard impact. The airplane stayed under control, touched down safely, and came to a stop. This is the lesson from the video. After an engine failure, time is limited. Height, position, and a reachable landing area can decide how the emergency ends.
appoggiati giusti. Spegniamo e riaccendiamo.
On June 30th, 2019, a Beechcraft Sundowner made a forced landing near Ludlow, California. The pilot first noticed a burning smell. Then the oil pressure dropped. A short time later, the engine lost power completely. With no engine power left, the pilot had to put the airplane down off airport. The landing was survivable, but the aircraft was badly damaged. Both people on board walked away without injury. Investigators later found the cause. An oil line fitting had come loose after recent engine work. That allowed the oil to escape, and the engine failed. This accident shows how a small maintenance mistake can become a serious emergency in flight. A repair is not finished until the aircraft has been checked carefully afterward. On January 25th, 2015, a Cirrus SR-22 was flying over the Pacific Ocean east of Maui. The pilot was alone, far from land, on a long flight from California to Hawaii. Then the fuel problem started. Fuel from the extra tank would not feed into the main tanks. He tried to fix it in the air, but the situation was getting worse. There was no runway nearby, no field, no second option, only ocean below. So the pilot made the call early. He contacted rescue crews, lined up near a cruise ship, and pulled the aircraft parachute. The Cirrus came down into the water under the parachute, and the pilot was rescued alive. That is what saved him here. Not luck alone. He still had time. He used the parachute before it was too late, and he made sure help was already close when the airplane reached the water. On April 20th, 2026, a Cessna 172 Skyhawk crashed in Pacoima, California, after taking off from nearby Whiteman Airport. The flight lasted only a few minutes. Then the airplane struck high-voltage power lines while trying to return toward the airport. The Cessna came down in a parking lot next to an auto parts store. It overturned, and the pilot was trapped in the wreckage. People nearby rushed in to help before emergency crews arrived. The pilot was critically injured, but no one on the ground was hurt. The exact cause is still under investigation. This crash shows how unforgiving a low-altitude emergency can be over a crowded city. When there is almost no height left, there is almost no room for error. On March 16, 2011, a BC Air Ambulance Sikorsky S-76 was taking off from a road in Pitt Meadows, British Columbia. This was a medevac flight, and the helicopter had very little space around it. As it lifted off, the rotor blades struck telephone wires beside the road. The blade tips were damaged. At that height, that could have turned into a serious crash within seconds. But the pilot kept control. He moved the helicopter away from the road and landed safely in a nearby field. No injuries were reported. This incident shows why wires are such a major danger in helicopter operations. They can be hard to see, especially during takeoff or landing. and once the helicopter is close to them, there may be almost no time to react. On October 1st, 2011, a Morgan AeroWorks Cheetah Sierra 200 was trying to land at Old Bar Airstrip in New South Wales, Australia. The airstrip was next to a public festival, and beside the runway there was a Ferris wheel. The aircraft touched down, then the pilot started a go-around, but during the climb, the airplane drifted left of the runway path. Seconds later, it struck the Ferris wheel. The aircraft became trapped in the structure, with 2 people on board the plane and 4 people on the ride. For a moment, it looked like it could have been far worse, but amazingly, no one was killed. Only minor injuries were reported. The ATSB later found that the pilot did not have the required skill for the type of flying being done. Investigators also found weak risk management around the festival operation. That is the real lesson here. When aircraft operate close to crowds, rides, and temporary event areas, planning has to be solid before the engine even starts. Because once a go-around begins, there may be no time left to fix bad spacing, weak planning, or a pilot who is not fully ready for the situation. On August 15, 2017, a historic PBY Catalina made an emergency landing at an airport in the Netherlands. Earlier in the flight, the crew had planned a water landing and takeoff on a large lake nearby. But during that water maneuver, something was damaged around the nose gear doors. Investigators later found that one damaged door most likely acted like a small rudder in the water. That made the aircraft turn sharply, and the damage that followed kept the nose landing gear from extending normally. So when the Catalina came back to the runway, the main gear was down, but the nose wheel was not. The crew kept the aircraft under control as long as possible. Then the nose settled onto the runway, and the aircraft slid to a stop. All 18 people on board escaped without injury. This incident shows how one small problem can change the whole flight. A water maneuver may look controlled from the outside, but hidden damage can turn the next landing into a real emergency.